This video is going to go through the basics of classifying your data within NVivo. Classifications enable us to allocate metadata to any of the data sources that we bring into the program. Metadata is essentially data about data. So for an interview, I could add metadata such as when the interview was conducted, who transcribed it, who the interviewer was, who the interviewee was. Any of this kind of data that we bring into NVivo can be later searched, sorted, and it helps us organize our project. To get me started, I need to first of all head to the classifications option, and you'll see source classifications here. To create a new source classification in list view, I'm going to right click and go for new classification. It's important to remember that these classifications are the overall containing categories, so they don't refer to one particular item but refer to a categorical level of items. So for one example, I'm going to create interviews as a type of classification. So now that interviews exist, I can label types of data that I have as interviews. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my sources. I'm going to go to my interviews, and here you'll see I can highlight all three of my interviews, right click, and under classification I can assign interview to them. So NVivo now knows that each of these are interviews. However, there's no additional data beyond that assigned to them. For me to be able to do that, I need to head back to my classifications, and under source classifications you'll see there's the interview classification I just created. To add items to this, so types of metadata, I have to right click, and these are called attributes. So I'm going to add a new attribute. So as I suggested earlier, one of those attributes could be who is the interviewer. So I'm going to type in interviewer, click OK. Another new attribute I might want to include would be transcriber. Click OK. You'll see I've made a mistake there for that one, so all I need to do is right click, and you'll see I can go to attribute properties and it gives me an option to rename it. Where there is a finite number of options, we can actually specify those options. So if I were creating a new attribute, I want to edit an existing one by right clicking and going to attribute properties, you'll see there is this values menu here, and here I could add in the different potential options for that. So now that I've added some attributes to my classification, I can go back to my sources and I can start adding that data in. So if I take Barbara's interview, for example, I can right click, I can go to document properties, attribute values, and I can start typing those options in. Where I've specified the options, I can access them from a drop-down menu. If I want to edit this data en masse, it's very easy to do. All I need to do is head to Explore, and under source classification sheets I'll get a list of all of the different source classifications I have. Here you can see I've just got interviews, and that's going to bring up all of the sources that are assigned to that and give me the option of adding the data for each of them. This might not look important, but if you have a large project with a lot of very diverse data, this can save you a lot of time later when you are querying your data or trying to find, organize, and sort things. However, it isn't necessary for every project. So if you are just using NVivo for a handful of interviews, there's nothing to distinguish those between, so there's no need for any of this. So always think about, when you're using NVivo, what does my project need? And this is one of the things that you may find isn't necessary. For others, however, it is essential. So it's going to depend a lot on the scale of your project and how much things you need to differentiate between. If you're using this for your literature, you'll find using something like EndNote or Mendeley will enable you to bring this kind of data in automatically, and it's a much quicker process than manually typing in all of this data for your literature.